Good day. In this presentation, I will reflect on my personal experiences that influenced how I approach change in a professional setting. This experience comes from my involvement in the Manufacturing Execution System or MES project. The project required developing a full-stack solution, including the user interface, the backend API, and the SQL Server database. However, the defining challenge was not just technical, it was organizational. During a critical phase of the project, the team was reduced from 5 members to just 2. The project scope remained unchanged and no immediate recruitment process took place. As a result, workloads increased, timelines became more difficult to meet, and collaboration and communication were negatively impacted. At the time, it felt like we were simply trying to cope. But looking back, the experience became a powerful learning opportunity in understanding how change should be managed. To make sense of the situation, I applied several organizational behavior frameworks. First, the input process output model helped me understand that while our inputs, changed significantly, the processes did not adjust. This created inefficiencies and unsustainable pressure. It showed me that organizational performance is influenced more by system conditions than individual efforts. Second, the job characteristics model highlighted a clear imbalance. Although we had a full ownership of the system, our autonomy was limited in terms of adjusting timelines or workloads. This reduced motivation and contributed to stress levels. Third, Lewin's change model was particularly relevant. Effective change required an unfreezing stage where people are prepared for the transition. In our case, that step was skipped and we moved straight into execution under pressure, which created a constant state of urgency rather than structured change. How this changed my approach? This experience fundamentally shifted my perspective on change. Previously, I saw change as something to endure. Now I see it as something that must be analyzed and managed proactively. One key learning was the importance of evidence-based decision making. It is not realistic to assume a smaller team can simply work harder to deliver the same output. Decisions must be based on real data, such as team capacity and system complexity. Another important lesson was the value of psychological safety. In high-pressure environments, people may hesitate to raise risks or admit mistakes. This increases the likelihood of errors. I now prioritize open communication and creating a no-blame environment. I also learned that job redesign is essential during change. When resources change, tasks and responsibilities must be realigned accordingly. Maintaining the same structure under different conditions leads to inefficiency and burnout. The 3 key lessons I took from this experience are these. First, focus on fixing the system, not the individual. Using the IPO model, I learned that behavior is shaped by organizational conditions. Instead of assuming poor performance, managers should analyze inputs, processes, and constraints to identify root causes. Second, understanding and managing resistance to change. Resistance is not always visible. It can appear as a disengagement, reduce morale, or increase errors. It is important to address underlying concerns such as fear of uncertainty and involve employees in decision making to build trust. Thirdly, follow a structured approach to change. Models like Kotter's 8-step plan provide a clear roadmap. Key steps include creating agency, removing barriers, and celebrating short-term wins to maintain momentum during change. Another key insight was the importance of managing the human side of change. The psychological safety or the unwritten expectations between employees and the organization must be protected at all times. When employees feel overburdened or unsupported, it leads to dissatisfaction or disengagement. Additionally, the job demands resource model explains that stress occurs when demands exceed available resources. In this case, high demands combined with reduced staffing created pressure that could lead to burnout. This highlights that successful change management is not just about processes, it is about supporting people. My recommendations are based on these insights. Using the APO model, we can diagnose problems before taking action. We can apply evidence-based management when making decisions. Redesigning roles and tasks to align with available resources is also crucial in this instance. By following structured frameworks like Quota's model to manage change systematically. These are my recommendations. In conclusion, this experience taught me that effective change management is not about pushing people harder. It is about creating the right conditions for them to succeed. By aligning organizational inputs, processes, and people, organizations can manage change more effectively and sustainably. Ultimately, when change is approached in a structured and human-centered way, it becomes an opportunity for growth rather than failure.